Well, I was a really nerdy kid, when you get older and you're nerdy, people don't really remark on it, but when you're a kid, it's kind of like an inescapable part of who you are. And I grew up in like a pretty progressive college town. Before Cambridge, before Amherst, it was Cambridge, Massachusetts, and they're both very liberal. And a big part of our public education when you're a kid was learning about the history of prejudice and categorization. And I thought, there's some weird category I've been put into that nobody's telling the history of. And then I was, however old I was, I was sort of American nerd, 26, I guess. I was sitting with my sister, who's a playwright, in this sort of like theater lunch place in New York, and she was like, I'd really like to read a history of the nerd. And it occurred to me that this was my book to write. An explanation of how this category came to be that had such a huge effect on so many people's lives, combined with an account of my personal experience and the experiences of my friends that hopefully gave evidence for how it affects people's lives, could be a good project. But I think when people are nerds in some way that's intrinsic to themselves, we might apply this label to them. It's probably best applied to people who are using rules to create a fantasy world. And that applies to people who do it through an online game like Worlds of Warcraft, or that applies also to people who do these massive medieval battles that they recreate in places like Arizona and the woods in Pennsylvania, where it's like 3,000 people charging each other. And they make up titles for themselves. It's not just fighting. There's what makes it so nerdy is that each of those guys, if you go up to him and ask him who he is, will be like, I'm Sir Olaf, a knight from Norway who originally came from Saxony or something, and like will have an account of his rank and like where he is in the whole system. They love these systems and these rules, and you can use rules and systems to create another world. And so I think that's a nerdy thing that goes from science fiction to these reenactments and everything else they do.